Hello. You are watching an informative video to learn more about an English word. Perfect. 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 Definitions of perfect. Adjective. Having all the required or desirable elements, qualities, or characteristics, as good as it is possible to be. Perfect.
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Liam. My pronouns are he, him, and his, and I'm here with the fantastic DW.
What's good, beautiful people? And my pronouns are they, them, theirs. And we've been kicking it since elementary school. And you are listening to What's Perfect Really podcast.
On this podcast, we're going to talk about transformative moments in music and the cultural impact those moments had on our lives and on the world.
And our mission is to bring light to the perfect moments of music we think deserve a little more appreciation. And today, we are talking about a 90s classic, an influential, a hip-hop influential classic.
Wow.
That influenced my entire trajectory of my life, even though I didn't know all the lyrics.
Do you know all the lyrics now?
No.
Okay. All right.
But, you know, we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
And that song is by Digable Planets.
Okay.
And it's called Rebirth of Slick, Cool Like That.
Yeah, I feel like most people know it as the Cool Like That song.
Yeah. I hear the people cheering in the back, cool like that. You did it. And it's off the album Reaching, a new refutation of time and space. So the album was released in 1993, but I believe the song dropped in 1992.
Mm-hmm.
So, and what's the song about? Well, I think it's my interpretation is it's like the quintessential hip hop song where it's just like, I'm introducing to you who I am and my people. And we're gonna go hard on this song so you know exactly who we are by the time we're done with this song. So like the classic introduction of who I am, how I rhyme, what my crew does, who we be kind of thing. And this is the first song of them on the scene from the first album.
Let me ask you this. I don't have like a broad knowledge of this group. I think, and correct me if you feel like you've had different experiences with people. I feel like this is a song, everybody knows the song. Everyone recognizes the name of the group. But like beyond that, I don't know much about the group or other songs they've had. I don't know if that's just my experience in the small group of people I have, or if that's like generally the broader experience everyone has with Digable Planets.
Well, I can confirm
Mm-hmm.
that, okay, so I went, if you know me by now, I went on a deep dive.
Mm-hmm.
I went on a deep dive and I learned a lot about Digable Planets. Well, I had already, you know, I love watching documentaries and bios and stuff like that. So I had already watched the unsung of Digable Planets, but I went back and watched it again because before I was just passing and watching, you know, now I'm like, wait, hold on, stop right quick. Okay, so let me just say this. I think I was about 8 years old. So this might have been when we were around the time we were meeting each other.
Yeah, probably. It's like 6th grade-ish for me.
Yeah, and I was whooping your ass in sports.
Oh, really? Is that the case?
In sports. Yep, that's the case.
I don't know.
Yeah. You won't remember, of course, because, you know, when things are happening to you that, you know, sometimes we try to forget those things. And I understand. Sure? I understand, Liam. I understand.
I remember like being a great wide receiver, just flying down the sideline and catching it.
And that could be true. That is true because you're tall, slender, right? Mm-hmm. So that's very well true. And it doesn't like take away from the fact that you could never tackle me or that I was scoring a lot of touchdowns like Barry Sanders-ish.
Yeah,
right?
Because you were like the running back and I was like a receiver.
Yeah, we played different positions, but everybody was tackling, except if you were trying to tackle, you know.
Yours truly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember being easily tackled. I think that was my flaw in my football career.
You know how everybody is like pretty tiny kids, and then you have the one kid that's like got a little bit more strength, a little bit more body, and that's the person you're like, please don't ever tackle me. And all 5 of us, we're gonna tackle you.
Yeah, it took an army.
Yeah, it took an army. So we had like the quintessential kind of size in I mean, we had the size too when we were playing, all different size and levels. It kind of reminds me of that game, you know, the Nintendo game. You might not know it. I think it's called Blades of Steel.
Oh, I remember that game. That was a great game. Yeah.
And then you pick, and this probably is like,
Is this like when you pick like a blue team and a red team? There's not like any like delineation further than that. Yeah.
Right. Yo, but this is what they do with the bodies. The bodies, they say big, medium, or like small, medium, large. And you select your team based off a small body, a medium body, and a large body. Like, I don't want to get into body politics right now, but that just reminded me of the game of like, you had this strategy of like, I remember when I was younger, let me pick the fat guy, you know, like they're going to guard my goal really well.
That makes sense.
But it's just like thinking about the ways that body politics comes into our play in our lives. Mm-hmm. So anyway,
for those that don't know, DW and I, along with the entire neighborhood, would play these huge football games that would last the span of the entire day. So from like, I don't know, 11 o'clock in the morning till it got dark.
Let's be real, to the lights. Everybody knows to the lights
would come on, and we would play tackle football. It was actually funner when it was raining and nasty out. We would play like any weather. I think that's the whole spirit of football.
It was always the summer though, right? Wasn't it always the summer? Because
I don't remember playing in the snow. Yeah, it was always like the weather was decent.
I feel like the people around us would be like, you're not going outside to play football, tackle football in snow and sleet.
Maybe
like you're not in the NFL, you know? Yeah. But I remember summer rains and it being like, yes, mud and And
it's interesting. The place that we played football is like this whole like multitude of apartment complexes, and then there's this one area of the specific apartment complex which had kind of like a field that was kind of measured the right size for like youth football, and there was like trees that could like mark out the end zone, but around it was like this whole bunch of apartment buildings that all had balconies, and balconies is kind of like a flowery term, like they were just like functional outdoor spaces that you could look at. And so it was kind of like a little bit of a stadium feel in this thing where you're surrounded by buildings where people could watch you. Mostly drunk college students, but still.
Yeah, from the morning or whatever. Yeah. I mean, from the night before.
I'm surprised none of us like fell on like a glass bottle. Like, that was not always a good situation that we were throwing ourselves around in.
I think we talk about that a little bit too. I don't know what episode it was, but if y'all have been steady listeners, then go back to episode 1, 2, or 3, and you got it there. So, all right, Digable Planets. This is what I also want to say, what I realized before we get into the times and scene and all the stuff is that, what was it? Yes. Digable Planets. What I realized. So I was 8 when this came out, so I didn't really know what was going on then, but now I have much more of an understanding of what was happening at that time, especially in like cultural movements and music. What I learned and love about Digable Planets is that when we think about hip hop, most people only know hip hop to be rap music, but hip hop is a culture, and it's a culture that has elements. And so when we're thinking about the most 5 basic elements of hip hop, we're talking about DJing, MCing, graffiti, b-boying, b-girling, and knowledge. Right. Those are the 5 base cultural elements of hip hop. So hip hop as a culture is celebrated by so many people because so many people have found their way into it through these different spaces. Right. And the MC wasn't the person in the forefront when hip hop first came out. It was really about the DJ. And what I love about Digable Planets is that, to me, they embody the movement of hip hop culture. Right. Just not rap. Mm-hmm. And them coming on the scene was at a time where we were talking about NWA, I think last episode or something like that. Mm-hmm. And like having this whole movement, all these different rap movements, like Sir Mix-a-Lot, MC Hammer, NWA, all these things happening. And then we'll say, I guess people will call this conscious rap. I just call it rap, right? Mm-hmm. Them coming out and acknowledging that hip hop is not just it's not rap, not just rap. It's a culture. And I love that now that I'm looking looking back, it's like, yo, y'all were really in it and you were acknowledging all the pieces. And then they brought some other shit to it that was like, wasn't happening. But before we get into all the review, I want to kind of paint the scene as we do. Okay. 1992. Now, we were close to this era before when we did the Scar.
Yeah.
Scar was like 94, so it's like 2 years off. So a lot of similar sentiments are going on. But I've picked a couple things out. So the police in the LA riots were acquitted. So
wow.
Rodney King, do you remember Rodney King?
Yeah.
And do you remember the WHATS riots?
So yeah, the riots followed the not guilty verdicts given to the police officers who beat Rodney King, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So that was a big thing.
Which is why, I mean, think of that. Like, they had a video of them beating this dude, like not arresting him. That's still one of those things that I guess you look back on and just like, wow.
But can you really? You still have videos now.
Yeah.
So it's to me, it's like time repeating itself. You know, fashion, like they say fashion repeats itself, but like a slightly different design. Like, bell bottoms are back now and they were in maybe 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Like police brutality has never.
It's been a constant.
It was born out of like policing was born out of brutality. So it's always going to be brutal. It, like, from my eyes, if you're born out of violence, you're always going to be violent. That's your intention. Your intention is always to harm Black folks. So that's what you're always going to do.
Yeah.
Regardless. I mean, anyway, so that's happening. Supreme Court reaffirms abortion rights. So I don't know all the details to that, but I know that that's a thing. And I'm going to say how this correlates to Digable Planets too.
Okay.
Hurricane Andrew. Do you remember Hurricane Andrew?
Yeah, because that one came all the way up to the northeast, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Yes.
I remember it was flooded outside of, I lived in an apartment complex and there was kind of like a little hill. And so it went down to my house, the way the grass went. There was a hill in front of me and you would come down. I'm trying to think about it because that part was flooded in with water. Wow. And I remember wanting to go play in the flood waters, because kids want to play in dirty ass water.
Yeah.
And my grandmother being like, no. And my mom being like, let them play. I mean, be like, let us play. And it's like a bad idea, So,
but you're still here. Like, I mean, isn't this the whole idea? They tell like kids are too like protected today. Like, just go and play in the mud.
Go play in the mud.
Dirt will do you some good.
Work those disease out. When kids have chicken pox, they're like, go over to this person, have a chicken pox party. Everybody has chicken pox now.
Yep.
You'll live, have an oatmeal bath. Everybody's good. Yeah. Was it?
I remember being excited to catch chicken pox. Like, it was.
Yes.
I was like, oh shit, I'm about to catch that shit. That's dope.
Yes.
Yes. Home.
You get a week home. It's like mandatory week home from school. Like that's the best. Gas is. Guess how much gas is?
98 cents a gallon.
Oh, that's so close. Yeah. So close. It's $1.05.
Okay.
That was like pandemic prices.
Yeah, I like that little stretch of the pandemic.
Right.
Not the like death and disease and global panic, but
the gas. That little moment, that little sprinkle.
Yeah. Like
nobody's on the road.
Yeah.
So movies, this is still around the Lion King era. So I plucked a couple different ones. I was like, oh snap, that came out. Mighty Ducks.
Oh wow, that was one of my all-time favorites.
Right. Cake Eater, right? Body Politics. Do you remember that?
Is that a character from the Mighty Ducks?
It's an insult.
Oh wow, not okay. I gotta read.
I guess one of the people.
Mighty Duck knowledge.
I don't know which one, but they would. Oh my gosh, Body Politics. Okay.
I remember like he pulled up on the ice with a limousine.
Oh yeah.
And like in my mind, this was like, when you're a kid and you daydream, it's like that. I would always daydream that something similar would happen. Where someone would pull up in a limousine to like wherever I was at and like whisk me away. And I was like, that would mean I made it.
Yo, fly. Okay, so let me just tell you, there's a video that popped up online, and this young boy is saying to, I think maybe his aunt, that he'd never seen a limo before. So the aunt pulls up to the school on his birthday, flexing, and the limo rolls down the window and is like, "What's up?" Yo, that was the best flex ever. It's like, come on, it's your birthday. Come on, get in this limo. Oh man, I was so happy for that Black boy joy that happened that day.
Oh,
Like you
really?
can see their face, like, ah, it's a limo. You know, so it's okay. So moments, limo moments. Juice.
Okay.
Don't. Is that's the don't. Is that in that movie? That beat? Doing it. The Juice. Okay.
I just remember there's like a Rakim song when he's about to throw him off the roof.
Oh,
but
that might be the Rakim song
yeah,
I'm doing right now.
Same one.
Yeah. White Men Can't Jump.
Oh wow.
I feel like that title was even controversial.
Like, yeah, that was like one of my. That might have been. I used to pick that as like my favorite movie when people would ask me. I don't know if it still is, but it was.
Yeah, it's like the whole movie he can't dunk, and they're betting on him dunk because he can't dunk.
He can't dunk now, yeah.
Oh man. All right. Yeah, if I watch that movie now, I'm sure I'd be like, oh my gosh.
And Rosie Perez was like perfect in that movie.
Oh my gosh, of course.
Yeah.
Right.
Sidebar.
But what was great about Rosie Perez going on Jeopardy doing a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, shout out to Rosie Perez for doing a thing on Jeopardy and White Men Can't Jump.
Yeah.
And I remember that was like kind of a controversial. It wasn't a controversial title, but I think it was one of those things where it's like you're saying white in a movie title. You know, like you know how people usually are like Caucasian.
Yeah.
Or they don't say white, and I didn't feel comfortable saying white for a minute. You know, because I was like, is it wrong for me to say white? Yeah, I don't know. Strange, right?
I remember watching that, and then my dad had to cover my eyes during there was like some sex scenes.
Oh, right.
Like, you can't watch this part.
Yeah, there was no covering of my eyes. All scenes. I was probably watching it by myself somewhere. Who knows? You know, like doing some shit that kids do. Home Alone 2 with Lost in New York. I've never seen that movie.
I saw that for the first time when Trump became president, because my cousin was like, you haven't seen that? Trump's in it. Okay, we'll watch this right now.
Oh wow. No.
It's Home Alone 1 is really where it's at. Home Alone 2 is not it.
Nah, I never spent a day watching that. Yeah, maybe there was a preview that came on and I was like, okay. Did I say Nirvana? Nirvana's out.
Okay, yep.
Smells Like Teen Spirit. Like this grunge. I don't know if the grunge rock scene is beginning. Because was Nirvana like grunge rock?
Yeah, Nirvana was grunge, and it was just like the birth of that whole like fashion style, like cultural movement of like grunge, alternative rock music. Word.
Okay, word. The fashion trends that are popping up in hip hop, and some may argue like depending on like when you talk about elements of hip hop, some will also add fashion into that element. FUBU, For Us By Us, 1992. So
did you own FUBU?
Look, all of these things that came out, I never owned.
Okay.
I wish, you know, but when I was that age, when they first came out, and I was that age, when I had access to my own money, there were certain things that I had, but I would watch like Jodeci and Karl Kani jean suits, and everybody like, yo, they got the Karl Kani outfits with the Timbs. Oh, shit is live, you know. Like I would listen and watch, and you know, I think around this time maybe Fila's were popping too. Like Fila was like the brand, the windbreakers, definitely bright colors, you know. And then this is when TLC, Baby Baby Baby, that song came out, and they had the baggy clothes on, which we now discover is like TLC was really broke, and they raided Jermaine Dupri's closet, and it's like, this is what we wearing.
Is that what it was?
Yo, I just because you know I'd be watching docs and stuff like that. I just saw this, and someone said it in the documentary. Like TLC didn't have no money, so they just went to Jermaine Dupri's closet, took their clothes, and that's what it was, you know. But it might have been in alignment with the style that was happening. So
that's mega fucked up. That whole thing is outrageous.
Yeah, it happens all the time. Stealing money from artists or taking money from artists. All right, so bright colors, Fresh Prince. That's out. Fresh Prince is like setting the scene with all the styles and stuff like that. Music, Boys to Men, End of Road. Baby Got Back, Sir Mix-a-Lot. Tears in Heaven, Eric Clapton.
Okay.
And this is also to the era of.
Side note: I've been to the building where his son actually fell out of the window, and
oh wow!
I didn't realize that until I was there for a while, and someone was like, explain it to me because it's a kind of like a fancy residential building in Manhattan. And I think David Copperfield lives on the top floor. And I was just kind of like with this person, they were explaining to me all kind of the stuff that made this building special. And in one regard, it was a very sad way that it made it special. That's the building where Eric Clapton's kid fell out the window.
Wow. How old was Eric Clapton's?
Really young. Like I think the kid may have been like 2. I mean, I don't quote me on this, but I just think it was that age where, you know, kids don't know any better and they're just doing stuff. And it's like you turn your head for a second and like the worst imaginable thing happens.
Devastating. Yeah. Devastating. Yeah, devastating. Yeah. Also condolences to Regina King, who just lost her son a couple weeks back.
Yeah, I heard about that. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, my heart. Okay. So we've painted the landscape in the picture. Liam, where were you? What were you doing with your life?
1992. What is that? Like I would have been in like 4th grade. I would have been, that was a weird time. I was moving around a lot then. So I definitely didn't live in New York anymore. But I don't know if the Iraq war was happening, the first one. And I know when that war happened, I moved around a lot. So I was in Massachusetts a bunch. And then I also lived in Maine briefly because my dad was in the war. So.
Oh, your dad was in the military?
Yeah. He was in the Air Force.
Wow.
So he was in the first Iraq war. Desert
Your dad was a pilot?
No, it's like, you know, like they have people who aren't pilots that just like tell the pilots where to go. You go there. I think that's what he did. He might have been an international spy. I don't think he was that either. I think he just was involved in the military machine.
Does he ever talk to you about it?
Yeah, I mean, I think no details, not because there's some sort of like secret thing going on, but I just think it was like a job, you know, like you're probably one person that does the task and, you know, it's part of the bigger picture. So,
well, so Rebirth of Slick comes out.
Yeah.
1992. So this is something that here are the group members, and I was like, you know, I went on my deep dive. One group member's name is Butterfly. The other's name is Ladybug, and the other's is Doodlebug.
Really?
And I'm yeah. So this is the first when they've come out on the first album. You know, these are the names or whatever. And I was like, this is interesting. And when they were talking about like where the names came from, they were talking about it. So because all of them were raised in like the 70s. And when you get the background, a lot of them have their parents were musicians and were in eras of Black liberation parties or influenced by the 5%ers. You know, a lot of things that were happening with like Black Revolution, a lot of these things influenced them. Right. And then also this kind of thing of Black in a diasporic way. So for me, Blackness, I always thought was, oh, I'm a Black person in the US and that's Black. But Black is like a diasporic thing. Like there's Black Cubans, there's Black, you know, when people say I'm Afro-Puerto Rican, they're acknowledging their Blackness. And so to not acknowledge your Blackness is what is part of the anti-Blackness like sentiment. So what was really dope is that Ladybug is Brazilian and Brazilian Black.
Okay.
Right. I don't know if Brazilian and Black, but identified as Black, but part of their heritage is Brazilian.
Okay. And just I'm gonna because I'm thinking the obvious, but I don't know if it is the obvious because there's also Butterfly. And so there's 2 male identifying people in the group and a female identifying person. And the female identifying person is Ladybug.
Yes.
Okay.
And then Butterfly is the person who came up with the name Digable Planets, put the group together.
Okay.
And then Doodlebug is somebody that they met. So they all met and kind of were like on a scene together. It's a fun fact. Like one of my hip hop theater or like poetry teachers used to hang out with Digable Planets in that time in New York. Yeah. And I was like, what? They're like a really fly singer, the teacher that I had, super, super fly singer. And they were like, yeah, no, we used to hang out all the time. I'm like, oh, okay. Like 6 degrees of separation. Okay. So so painting that picture of them coming out, because when you think about that time, now when I flash back, Tribe Called Quest, like this back to Africa kind of music movement was happening. Arrested Development. Yeah. Who else was coming out at the time? I'm sure I'm missing so many, like Far Side. There was a lot of music that was not just mainstream hip hop music, but there was a lot of music. There was something for everybody.
Yeah.
And this, what people refer to as conscious or positive rap.
Mm-hmm.
Like, well, positive rap. I think that's kind of weird, the name positive rap.
Yeah.
But that means that there's
like that.
Is there an opposing?
That means like when you just say rap, it's negative.
Yes.
No, we can't just say rap this time. This time it's the positive kind.
Right. I'm like, damn, y'all. Like, what happened? What happened? So they came up with those names. They were like, name themselves after bugs because they felt like there's a unification with bugs. There's a communal collective power that bugs have in order to get to where they need to go. Mm-hmm. So say like, what is it? The bees, they have the hive.
Yeah.
Right. And they collectively work to support the queen kind of thing.
Okay. Yep.
Right. Or like the ants, they collectively build together. So there's a collectivity that they wanted to kind of embody within their names in their group. Mm-hmm. So I was like, oh, this is interesting, coming from the era of understanding how Black Panthers work to collectively gather Black communities and support Black communities. So that a lot of that was coming from those era and what they were hearing from the parents. So I was like, oh, this is really, really hip hop. I had no idea. Mm-hmm. It's really, really hip hop. And so they're creating this group. Now I want to say with this group dynamic, what's so fantastic about it is that there's no Fugees without Digable Planets. There's no Black Eyed Peas without Fugees, right? Mm-hmm. Like they all influence each other. But this was the first time that there was a woman in a group that picked up and went mainstream, and they wound up winning a Grammy, right?
Oh wow.
So, but what was amazing about it is that they lyrically, like, when I'm looking at it, when you hear the beat, because it comes in when you first hear the beat, and I feel like everybody knows this bass line.
Is one of the most recognizable intros in all of hip hop, in my opinion.
Yes.
Also. Yeah.
Right. And then the snaps, horns, dun, 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 right. And you have what was it? The sax and what was the other one? Trumpet.
Dun, 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 yeah, it's definitely a horn. I don't know which they are, but yeah.
Dun, dun, dun. Mm-hmm. Yo, it just punches. It's not like it punches you in the face, but it just activates your whole spirit of like, yo, this is happening. And so this is bringing this jazz element, so you can feel like the influence of their parents and what they listen to. Yeah. Bringing the jazz element into hip hop, and it's like so cool. Go ahead.
It is so, you're right. Jazz. It's like so jazz inspired. Like it's like it feels like if you take the drums away, it could just be like, if you take the drums and the rapping away, it would just be like in a jazz club playing.
Yo, as a producer, when you listen to this beat, what do you think? Or like as someone who's produced,
Yeah, no. So this is definitely the era of hip hop that like inspired me to be a producer. And the whole like break beat in there is really dope. That just the way it's structured is so cool. It's like you have the bass line, which is like the driving force of the entire beat. And then this break beat that goes with the bass line that just kind of obviously gives it that hip hop like swing and vibe. And then they have this like really jazz inspired horn parts that kind of pop in and out. It's really dope. And what is also dope about it, and to me, which makes it take a step further than just what it is on the surface, is if you listen to it, it's not just a loop. So like when you make a beat, you can just like loop up a 5-second bass line and just plays the same way through the whole song. This one, you hear subtle variations as the song goes along, which is much more like what jazz actually is, which is this kind of constantly changing and more in the moment, artful. And I think they embraced that and found the right balance in the song.
And when you go like deep into the beat, you get this wang, wang.
Yeah, there's all these like little weird things that happen. Yeah.
Like they're happening, right? And it's like, it almost sounds like this aboriginal instrument or indigenous instrument. I think it's Australian indigenous instrument called the didgeridoo.
A word? Yeah. I don't know. I can't confirm.
But it sounds like that error of that when it goes ring ring. I can't make the sound, but it's like you know what I mean, like a rubber bandish kind of whatever. But the didgeridoo, I don't think is a string. It's kind of like more horn oriented, but it's a very deep rooted resonant sound. Like when you think of meditation, the didgeridoo is like that's the thing it sounds like. And I know a couple people that play it, but it kind of gives me that vibe. So like they're reaching and all of the different, it's so eclectic. And I had no idea, Liam, And so when I picked the song, I was like, yo, we got to review this because I love this song.
Yeah.
I had no idea the layers I was about to get into. And that's why I had to go on a deep dive because I'm like, I'm not about to come on a podcast and not be able to do this some justice. Because I mean, lyrically, you know, we could do to have like someone who knows lyrical breakdowns more so than both of us, because the stuff that they're doing in here, oh my gosh, it's like these compound or complex structures with there's so many metaphors, and metaphors are really tough for me. I'm a simile kind of person, because simile is like when you do like or as when you're comparing something, and a metaphor is straight off comparing something without the like or as. And for some reason my brain has a really hard time unless I magically come up with a metaphor when I'm writing and I'm like, I did it, yes, right. But I have a really hard time with metaphors. But structurally, the things that they're doing in this whole song, and then the approach and the changes, actually it's kind of like a jazz, like if you could imagine a jazz song without words, I guess it kind of feels like that to me too, structurally. And I could be completely off base, but this is my perspective of the way that they're just like, yo, I'm gonna put this here. It's almost like, this sounds good here, let's put this here, you know, or that's, oh, that really blends well here, let's put this here, you know. And then when I think about jazz, I think about like a groove, when you're finding yourself in the pocket and you're like, all these things are happening on this beat. Someone may be scatting over here, somebody may be having a breakdown over here that makes me break it down, but we're all finding the pockets of the groove together. And to me, the song does that. It finds all of these different pockets to be like, all right, instead of being I'm cool like that, I'm gonna be like I'm chill like that. You know what I mean? I'm gonna be like I'm peace like that. Right. And then they have these little moments, you're like blink, 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 blink. Well, where did that come from? And these references to, what is this, a reference to the Last Poets? I think maybe like a Last Poets poem. So you could tell all these influences that are in there. And I'm like, damn, yo, these lyricists are like super, super lyricists. And it makes me think about the 90s and the way that people were like how different lyricism was and how it was connected to knowledge of self and knowledge of community when we talk about hip hop. So, and what was also dope about it, everybody was writing their own stuff, right? There's no question. Like, oh no, they're writing their own stuff. Which is not like, sometimes you think about, it's just a different era. And I think also music is so fast paced that most people are not writing their own stuff because maybe sometimes they're not able to just sit down and write because I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, but I'm capable of writing that. But maybe you're not capable and you're just not writing. But I think it's different the way we put songs together, or the way people think about rap or approach rap now. I don't know, what do you think?
No, I think so. I think it was like back then it was sacrilegious to not write your own thing. It was like you would get canceled out of the genre if you weren't writing your own stuff. And there's kind of like been this evolving thing that I think has happened. There's like straight up ghostwriting, which I think is still frowned upon, but I think more has happened now where there's like collaborative elements of creating raps that has become more accepted. But you're right. Back then it was like you had to write your own stuff. And if you didn't, like, it was like self-policing, you know, because you couldn't stand next to someone who didn't write their own stuff. So like you would be ostracized if you weren't writing your own thing. So
yeah. And what this song does, and I think that you mentioned you like a lot, is that there's a lot of colloquialisms in it that are within the neighborhood. Right. So when I looked at it, I'm like, damn, yo, I had to go back and think about all the terms. Right. Because even when Butterfly was talking about, oh, you know, when I was coming up, like back then, when you said, oh, that's butter, that was something that was like smooth and fly. So when I thought about my insect name, I thought butterfly, you know, like, because I'm butterfly, right? That's which is like, you know, it's not.
I guess I'd have to transport myself back then to like hear it that same way. Because now when I hear it, I just think of like this like floaty kind of insect. Right.
But so they're thinking about this collective dynamic and all the stuff while they're creating this dope song. So when you hear it, this bass line comes in and it's just like, it's like honey on your ears. That's how I would describe it. Honey on your ears. It's like, boom, comes in. Everybody's in this jazz joint. So when you look at the video's in black and white. Were a lot of black and white videos, or was this just the aesthetic of Digable Planets? Because they had a lot of black and white videos.
No, there were a lot of black and white videos. Now they may have had onto themselves a whole bunch that were for them, but I do remember a whole lot of black and white videos. It's kind of like, because it was like, remember like Spike Lee did like a whole black and white movie, and I think Spike Lee has to be factored into like hip hop in the early 90s, because like he was kind of like the visualizing this culture and not necessarily musical way as much, but and there was a lot of this kind of like indie art director stuff that was black and white back then, that it makes sense that a lot of videos were like that, because I can recall quite a few.
What Spike Lee movie was black and white? You remember?
Is it She's Gotta Have?
Was She's Gotta Have it in black?
There's like a student one. I think it's like his first student one. So my mom made me like sit down and watch all the Spike Lee movies like at a young age. And I remember one is like black and white, but I guess in general, I remember this era. There would be like a lot of sepia tone things. Like it was a common thing to just like wash out the black, the kind of normally recorded color stuff with the black and white era.
Okay.
Filter.
Yeah. All right. So I thought, like I said, I thought I was doing something simple here. When I was like, yo, this is just a classic boom bap jazz flow kind of song. It was not. It was not. It is not. I looked at the lyrics and I'm like, what? I had to really like, you know how when people have their glasses and they're looking at the phone and they're like, hold up, and they pull the phone close and they pull the phone back. Hold on. Like I had to really like pull the phone close, pull the lyrics back. I was like, what? This is complex. This is not some shit we be talking about with, like, and I was just, immediately my respect just like grew through the roof for this song, because I never realized how dope the song actually is. Super, super lyrical in this poetic.
Let me ask you this. I think it's kind of an interesting conundrum that happens. Like, because I have the same experience. I've heard the song a bazillion times. I think it's even on like commercials sometimes. And this is years and years and years of hearing a song. But until you picked it and I looked at the actual lyrics, like I never consumed the song from like a detailed lyric standpoint. I just kind of consumed it as this musical moment that's happening. And it's dope how you can kind of have two different moments that you hear the song. One is, I think, what probably 99% of the people have, which is just the bass line, the voices fit nice over the beat and the whole jazzy vibe. But then if you actually listen to the lyrics, it's a whole other experience that I didn't have either until recently.
Yeah, this also reminds me of like we were talking about when I was in Chicago recently, and when people talk about Chance the Rapper, No Name, Jamila Woods, like that, the whole, I think maybe concentrating, this reminds me of No Name sound. Do you know No Name?
I remember she got into a beef with J. Cole, and like that's how I learned about No Name. Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Didn't you like son J. Cole? Isn't that what happened?
Probably.
Yeah.
No Name is incredible lyricist. Incredible lyricist. A lot of the stuff is very jazz influenced. The work, and so it's like listening to this and listening to No Name and being like, yo, this is the evolution of Digable Planets. That's what it feels like for me, for someone who's heard that and heard this. So when we get into Butterfly, we're going to talk about Butterfly, and we talk about the nuances of the lyrics and flow. We like the breeze flow straight out of our lids, right? We like the breeze flow straight out of our lids. So like the breeze, we're flowing straight out of our lids, out of our domes. Boom, flow straight like a dome. Them, they got moved by these hard rock Brooklyn kids. Oh my gosh, I should have warmed up my mouth. I should have said that. Them, they got moved by these hard rock Brooklyn kids. So Brooklyn kids, people are getting moved by these Brooklyn kids, right? Us, Floor Rush, when the DJ's moving classics, you dig the crew on the fattest hip hop records. So it just flows. It like the way, oh my gosh, it's so smooth when it's like butter. It's literally like butter, this whole song, right? And so I'm thinking about like when you think about the references that they make, and I'm gonna go to. So I'm just giving y'all an understanding of the flow of what's happening here. So they're introducing themselves, like, yo, this is who I am. This is how we be. And what I love, like a line out of Butterfly's verse that I'm like, yo, this shit right here is, and I think everybody knows this. Everybody remembers this one. was like the Pooba of the styles like Miles and shit, like the king of the styles of hip hop like Miles, like 60s funky
Is that like
worms.
Miles Davis or is
Miles
that like
Davis,
okay,
Miles Davis,
yeah.
the Pooba of the style like Miles and shit, like 60s funky worms with waves and perms, like 60s. If you were funky, you were in, you had a wave or a perm. Just sending chunky rhythms right down your block. We be to rap what key be to lock. Oh, there's the metaphor.
Yeah.
But you see, there's like 60s. There's your simile, Pooba, like. Then there's you see these simile build metaphor. We be to rap what key be to lock. And I'm cool like that. I'm cool like that. I'm cool like that. So, you know, it's one of those things. It's not in your face, though. It's not in your face how they talk about how fly they are. Because when you think about rap is literally I'm when you rap battle, you're talking about who's the flyest, right?
Yeah.
And most like when rap battle started, it was like who's the flyest, who's about, you know, you're trying to out wordsmith this person, and you're talking about everything that you can grab from. Right. So Butterfly opens has this and okay, and this is what's great. You know, I know you always say this when you're like, and maybe I'll be putting you on the spot. When you listen to the Fugees, you listen to Wyclef, and you listen to Lauren, and you're like, Praz just seems like they were lucky. They got added to the group.
He like snuck in and was like, yo, I'm here now.
Like Praz was somebody's cousin who got added to the group, and they had a nice voice, and they were like, here's your lyrics. Exactly. Right. We don't know if that's truth, right? I don't know how true that is, but that's what it sounds like. Or at least I hear you say that. Is that true for you? Let me not.
No, that's totally the case. Yeah, it's like, I say it a lot. Like a lot of times in rap music, especially because you have so much more songs that are collaborative, and you can hear on a song like this clear delineation, and at least what I'm hearing to be talent and like just awesomeness. And with all due respect to Praz, like you can't be next to Lauryn Hill and just be like, okay. You know, you got to be like one of the dopest ever. And we got Fugees is dope. I'm all in, but I'm just saying, like,
when I listen to Praz, I'm like, Praz is holding their own. Like he's holding his own. You know, like I don't know if Praz writes Praz's rhymes or whatever, but I'm like, you holding your own. Your voice is solid. Like your delivery is solid. I mean, you're just next to, you know, greatness.
Yeah.
You know, and so, and when I'm thinking about Digable Planets, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't look at the rhymes and be like, this is a Praz situation.
Yeah.
You know, because then when I get to Ladybug's verse, let me pull some things out here.
Let me correct myself. So the same way we talked about this song, where it's like you can listen to it in two different ways, where you can kind of just absorb the musical moment of it as kind of like an overall, not deep sense. And then you can also like really listen to it from like a studying standpoint and like actually really dive deep into it. And when you listen to the Fugees in kind of a broader sense, Praz totally is fine, fits in great. But if you like really pay attention and like study the song, to me, that's where it's just not even close. And
like lyrically, when you're talking about the three of them on a
like
track?
if the Fugees on as background music or I'm vibing out, like Praz is fine, no issue. And I don't have issue with Praz. Like me and B, we don't have beef. But when I'm like listening to like really hear like lyrical thing and like really get in my zone, then I do skip past Praz and I just only listen to the records where Lauryn Hill's going off.
Fair. So Ladybug comes in. So we're talking about tone too. And you like, I love sonically the way things sound. I love tone. You know, I'm a big fan of tone. Ladybug comes in and it's like, oh my gosh, how is this so sweet? You know, how is your voice? Because even like I said, it's like honey. The beat is like honey in your ears when that bass line comes in. And it's like, what's okay? So what goes with honey? So Ladybug comes in. We be the chocolates taps on my raps, like the smooth, the chocolate tapping all the on the raps, right?
Yeah. She
innovates after sweeter cat naps, right? So I don't really know all the meaning to that part, but
okay.
But talking about the innovation, like I get the part of innovation. Let me think. After sweeter cat naps, nah, nothing's coming right now.
Okay.
He at the funk club with the vibrate, right? We're in the club, just vibrating on another level, right? So then
Very like poetic, like where
Yes.
it doesn't explicitly spell out exactly what every single thing means. Part of it sounds like it's for you to interpret.
Right. So I'm interpreting that vibrating. They're just at this funk club vibrating on another level with their frequency, whatever they're doing, like, you know.
Yeah.
Skip into a couple things. Us, we be freaking till dawn blinks an eye. You know I love personification. You know I love it. Dawn blinks an eye. So we be freaking, and this is just one bar, right?
Yeah.
Dawn blinks an eye. And then he gives a stranger smile. So I say, hi, what's up? Like, they have a line. So you have this kind of like this complex rhyme that's happening in there. And then it's like, hey, what's up? You know, what I love as we get to what makes this epic for me is when you get to the last couple parts of the rhyme, and then you'll see Ladybug come into him and address another line that was like, yo, when you heard it, you were like, yo, this is so tight, because you never really heard somebody say that. Pimp playing shock, it don't matter because I'm fat. Like, actually, let me start a little bit up. If it's the shit, we'll lift it off the plastic. The babes will go spastic. Hip hop gains a classic. Pimp playing shock, it don't matter. I'm fat. Ask Butter how I zone. Man, Cleopatra Jones. So just basically saying, like, we the shit.
Yeah.
Like, you lifting it, you taking this with you. You know what I mean? If it's a shit, it's a classic. This is a classic. And then you ask Butter, who's Butterfly, right? How I zone. How did my rhyme zone? How do I be in my zone? Like Cleopatra Jones, the classic Cleopatra from the blaxploitation film era, who's like the shit. And so Ladybug is saying, I'm so dope, I'm like Cleopatra Jones.
Yeah.
Right. And like, what I love about it is that she's not, I don't even have to say it. Ask Butter how I zone. Like, let me pass it to my mans. I don't even have to say this last line right here. And I think that's so dope, yo.
Yeah.
And then Butter comes in like Cleopatra Jones or man Cleopatra Jones. Yeah. And it's like, I'm chill like that. I'm like, yes, you are chill like that. Matter of fact, you are. That defines chill. Like, I definitely feel you're chill right now. You know what I mean?
I just realized for the first time that it switches from I'm cool like that to I'm chill like that. Okay, all right.
Yeah, so it goes cool, then it goes chill, and then you have that little blink, 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 blink. Like, where the hell that come from? And then Doodlebug comes on.
Is it Doodlebug like,
or Doodlebug? Doodlebug. Okay. And then when you ask, because they on the second album, I think that they changed their names from this to like some other names ish, Mecca, and I forgot Doodlebug. What I don't know, but this was what was happening. So Doodlebug, they said Doodlebug when they were thinking about a bug. Actually, I think in the blaxploitation film, the villain of Cleopatra Jones was Doodlebug, always trying to catch Cleopatra Jones, something like that. And so Doodlebug was like, I'm just gonna be, that's the name I'm gonna be.
Okay.
So we get you free because the clips be fat, boss. Them, they're the jams and commence to going off. So, and when I say this is just the song where you are talking shit, but it's so smooth that I didn't even know that they were like, yo, we're just dope.
Yeah.
This is how dope we are. If you didn't know, let me emphasize how dope we are as a group, as individuals, that kind of thing. And the line where I get with Doodlebug is the rebirth of Slick like my gangster stroll. So the rebirth of Slick, the song, is like my gangster stroll hard. That's how I'm interpreting it.
Yeah.
The lyrics just like Luke come in stacks and rolls. Right. You see these similes like at the bottom. It's kind of, they all have some similar format when they come in on this. You used to find a bug in a box with fade. So Doodlebug used to have a box and fade, you know, like the Kid and Play haircut.
Okay. All right. Yep.
Now he boogies up your stage, plaits, twist, or braids. And I'm peace like that. I'm peace like that. I'm peace like that. Right. So it's all in a groove.
Yeah.
And I just, you know, it's one of those things like you don't think, you know, when people are talking shit, you don't really, sometimes when people are talking shit or they read you or they're like, yeah, it's kind of in your face. What I love is this is not in your face.
No, you're right.
You don't even know that it's happening.
Yep.
They're just like, yo, boom, let me say my thing. Let me say my thing. It's kind of like when someone sweet talks you and then all of a sudden you're walking away with them and you don't know why.
Oh, wow.
Maybe that hasn't happened to you before.
No one sweet talked me and walked away with me. I've never had that experience.
It's like, does anybody, let me try to think, like, you ever, okay, like moments, I feel like when I was in college, you would be like, that shit never happens to me, DW. Like the stuff that happens to you never happens to me.
Yeah.
There will be moments where I'll be talking to somebody and then they'll just kiss me and I'll be like, what? How did that happen? And so for those who's like, it's a very consent based kind of situation, but I would find myself in a situation where I'd just be talking to people and then all of a sudden this happened and I'm like, oh, this that happened. Liam, yo, you'll never guess what happened. They'll be like, that shit never happens to me. And I was like, maybe because I'm in queer relationships. I think like femmes feel more comfortable with femmes in certain ways, you know? And also, like, I like having conversation with people, but conversation would often turn when I was in college physical, like just a regular conversation. Yeah, I don't know. But this is what it reminds me of.
What were you talking about before you just would get kissed? Was it like, wow, your lips look great? Or was it like, geez, I wonder when the next full moon is or something?
I mean, it didn't like, it didn't happen often, but when it did, it was like a memorable, Liam, I got to call you and tell you what just happened. But no, I think it would kind of be, you know how you have countless conversations with people?
Mm-hmm.
I love having conversations with people. You know, I love learning about people. I love hearing stories and people sharing their things. That's the kind of person I am. And maybe that's charming for other people. You know what I mean? Like, and so it seems like a seamless thing, but it's not like I'm often having conversations with people like, how's everything going? You know, looking in people's eyes and like, oh, you're telling me a story, but your eyes are saying something different. What's true for you for real? Like I'm that kind of person.
Yeah.
You know, and I think maybe people can be really, I'm a Cancer, right? So like I'm hard in the outside, soft on the inside, but I'm also very empathetic and into connecting with people. I don't really like small talk. Small talk is really hard for me.
Yeah. So
now it kind of makes sense that I'm reflecting on who I am.
As long as I've known you, we've never had one of those conversations like, wow, the weather's really funny right now. Like, did you remember how much it rained last Tuesday? Like, we've never had that conversation.
I was just talking about when I came to your house and I was like, whoa, my life. Yeah. Boom. Here you go. Were you, is that okay? Because I just did that. You okay? My bad. I'm gonna tell you before next time I do it. But yeah, that's true. In all the years, like I'm sure maybe I don't know what you think, but in conversation with me, do you find yourself prepping yourself to be in conversation with me, or are you just like,
no, just jump in. Yeah.
I just know we're gonna have this long conversation.
Yeah.
But I think some of my friends, like I'm friends with a lot of Cancers. You're a Taurus, right?
No, I'm a Gemini by like a day.
Oh, Gemini.
Yeah.
Gemini, but Gemini is my like moon sign or something.
Oh yeah.
Or some shit. Like I'm a sun Cancer. Something is in Gemini for me. So, and it's relevant. But yeah, so these are the conversations we're having most often. These would be the conversations I would have with other people.
Yeah.
And one thing would lead to another, and then that would happen. And it would be like cool like that. You know what I mean?
Is that how you feel afterwards? Like,
yeah. I mean, how could you not feel like when you're younger? Come on, man. Like I was a basketball player. I was an athlete. I had this like muscular kind of let's say, do you watch the Marvel movies?
Some of them.
Okay, so I had this big crush on Tessa Thompson for a while. Shout out to Tessa Thompson. But it was like Tessa Thompson in the Marvel movies, she's Lady Valkyrie. And she had these like really nice subtle cuts on her arm. Right. So that's kind of how my body was. I was athletic, but I had these really nice subtleties to my body that I personally appreciated. And so I was feeling myself, you know, and like had these locks, and, you know, I was really great at playing basketball on my team. You know, I was a poet. I had a lot of things going for me at that age. I feel like in a lot of ways, and a lot of people were souping me up. So of course I
remember visiting you in college, and like you were a big deal. See? There was always like something happening. Yeah, it was a lot of activity.
Yeah, so I'm not like me being, but I was also very much into like student organizing. So I was always in a crowd. Like I was never the type of person who's in one space. I was always like, oh, let's go here, let's go here, let's go there, or whatever. So I mean, and I guess that made me like Digable planets in some ways to some people. Like, you know, it was that would happen. But back to this verse.
Yes.
So when we get the Doodlebug, and then they go twist the braids, and then Doodlebug is like, I'm peace like that, I'm peace like that, I'm peace like that, I'm peace like that. Then you get to, as they get to the end of the song, this right here is like it's unexpected. I don't even know what they call this song structurally. Do you know structurally?
What you mean like the chorus, verse, like all that stuff, or you mean like
like what would this end part be?
Oh, the end of it?
Yeah, because it looks like there's 3 verses and they're not necessarily formatted.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. So there's verse, hook, verse, hook, verse, hook, and then at the end there's like an outro kind of thing. But it's not just like talking shit. There's like a there's a I feel like it's kind of like a jazzy outro.
Yeah, but it's like the bars. I think the first verse, Butterfly's verse, has 20 bars. Ladybug is 16.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, I haven't counted, but I do see, like, just visually, if you look at the lyrics page, you're right.
Doodlebug is 12. So even that is not, you know what I mean? The way that they structure the verses is not your standard.
Yeah.
Right. And then it goes, I'm peace like that. And then check it out, man. I groove like that. I'm smooth like that. I jive like that. I roll like that. And it's almost like this is again the jazz element. Someone's passing you something and you're like, oh, you do that? I do that. I do that. And they're just improvising. That's what it sounds like to me. They're just like, we're in a groove together. We're just slapping together like boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
Then Ladybug, I'm thick like that. I stack like that. I'm down like that. I'm black like that. What? 92? I'm black like that? And also it was relevant because Ladybug, I think too, is like lighter complected. Well, Ladybug is light complected. And at that moment, that was also relevant too, I think, in a way, for people who, there's always this thing of colorism in the Black community where it's like, you're light skinned, you're not black enough. Like prove your blackness, which is, it's so complicated in so many different ways, but that stood out like that. And I also think when you think about blackness on the diaspora, for Ladybug to say that, I felt like it had so many different meanings to it. Like now, looking back, there's so many different meanings to it. In the moment when I heard somebody saying I'm black like that, it was kind of like, say it loud, I'm black and I'm proud, right? You always had to be kind of, being black is like, you had to have this black pride, but it was always hard to have black pride because you always told black was the worst thing ever. But then when someone to say straight up in a hip hop record, on the smoothest record ever, and be like, I'm black like that, was so distinctive to me to hear that. And then they go, I funk like that, fat, jazz like that, freak like that, we out. And that to me is just like, oh my gosh, I just had an experience. I don't even know how long this song is, but it's an experience. And to be quite honest with you, Rebirth of Slick, I think, is one of the songs that when I was playing basketball, every basketball player has the music that they listen to before they play. And this was one of the songs that I had to listen to when I was playing. Like before I got played, it got me like in the zone. Yeah, it was one of the songs that did that. And all that time, I never knew the lyrics.
Yeah. So we were saying earlier, you can consume the song your whole life and never like actually sit down and listen to the lyrics. Just kind of, you hear the whole song as an overall thing.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I realized too, listening to lyrics? No curse words, no N-word, completely free of any of that stuff.
I don't know if that's true. Is it true?
I think it's true.
Nah, it's not true.
They say a bad word?
I don't think curse words are terrible. If it's the shit, we'll lift it off the plastic.
See, they stuck it in there.
Maybe, yeah, I think there's not an emphasis on, like, in their climate. I think this also speaks to how they grew up, and where they come from and what is meaningful to them, But I think they have a lot of reference to weed and stuff, but they have references to 5%ers. They have references, you know what I mean? I think it's relevant to their climate and what it is that they're wanting to get across, of like, you can be all of these things and you still can be about that hip hop, about uplifting people. You can say all these things, and you don't have to do it, I guess, and you can do it in so many different ways.
Yeah.
So that's what I get from it. Now I'm gonna ask you,
sure,
anything that pops out to you. Let's say, what's the most fantastical moment for you?
Yeah, to me, it's the whole, watching this thing, I watched the video. So the video is a whole other thing going on. So we talked about it's black and white. They have some interesting thing going on there that I think are very intentional. They're like the band that plays behind them, I think is entirely Asian, which again is like another element that he's like, wow, you know, I feel like they're a very thought out group. Nothing happens by mistake. The whole band is Asian. Even the people in the audience are like, it's like this kind of like very diverse group. I think there's like an old white dude, and at one point he gives like the head nod, and it's like, okay, that means he's down, I guess. So I think as I the best part to me is always that bass line. It's undeniable. It's one of the most recognizable 3-second moments in all of hip hop history. And I think that has to stand out. But if you haven't seen the video, go back, watch the video. It's like a little time machine type of feel. And I don't know, just try to look at all the different people that they specifically chose to be in there. And I guess try to like think of like, well, why did they decide that? I don't know the answer, but both those things stuck out to me about the song.
Yo, now that you say that, the band, actually, the Roots don't exist if Digable Planets don't exist, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the Roots could exist, but Digable Planets had a live band playing behind them. And, you know, at that time, that was like an unheard of thing.
Yeah.
You know, it like lifted the samples in a way where it's just like, yo, this is different.
Yeah.
This is different. So that was also a really big deal as well. So a lot of the things that they were bringing it was just different, you know? And I do really think that was the influence that their household had on them, of like instrumentation, really respecting instrumentation in a different way, because maybe you had more connectivity to it.
Yeah.
Right. Because Butterfly talks about having a saxophone, dad buying a saxophone for him, and then him, you know, having sax and then getting into hip hop.
Yeah.
And that kind of thing. Most fantastical moment for me.
Yeah. What is it?
All right, I'm gonna cheat, and I think I'm gonna do 2.
Okay, I'm gonna allow that this time.
You're gonna allow this time?
Yeah.
Only this time?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I'm gonna say I'm black like that. Just that line, right? Because it was so meaningful for me in the moment. But this one, I think, was really, it just sticks out to me when I think about the whole entire song. Just like I'm black like that. This line right here it's memorable. We beat to rap what key beat to lock. That for me is just like, yo, that metaphor is so clear to me. Like, if you don't have Digable Planets in rap, you will not be able to open your house door. You will not be able to turn on your car. You will not be able to open your diary. The key with the diary. You're not going to be able to open the things that are essential for your living. Digable Planets is essential to your experience in hip hop, your experience in living. We beat to rap what key beat to lock, and I'm cool like that. Oh gosh, I'm about to listen to this song all day. So that for me, that did it. Where can you find this song? I believe it's you can definitely find it on YouTube. You find the video on YouTube. I haven't looked if you can find it on Amazon Music.
Yeah, it's on Spotify too. I was bumping it on the car ride back home.
Okay, where that was a great decision that you made.
Yeah,
to bump it on.
Then
the car
I went
ride.
on a whole Tribe Called Quest. I did the whole like jazz hip hop like whole era.
All right. So here's the thing. We invite you to take what you want from the podcast and leave what you don't, because ain't nobody perfect.
Hello. You are watching an informative video to learn more about an English word. Perfect. 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 Definitions of perfect. Adjective. Having all the required or desirable elements, qualities, or characteristics, as good as it is possible to be. Perfect.